In this video, I'm having another look at some of the relationship, sexual health and parenthood materials being developed by the Scottish Government for use in schools, in particular this section for use in upper primary school. Now I'm going to make another couple of videos about the upper primary school materials, some of them about the sex education specifically, some of them about the, as you'd expect, pushing the LGBT and particularly T agenda in schools. But in this video I'm going to look at some of the other bits and pieces in there. Some of them are just a bit weird. Okay, how about this? A wise quote: "Be happy with being you. Love your flaws." I mean, what's that mean? If by flaws it's meaning you've got squinty teeth or something, well, sort of maybe, but character flaws? Surely you should want to change your character flaws. And know that you're just as perfect as anyone else, exactly as you are. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It's vacuous nonsense. Anyway, it's from a pop star. There are two problems with that. Number one, it's a shallow, muddled soundbite. Is that really the best we've got to offer to young people in school? Problem number two, Ariana Grande is a singer renowned for her sexual lyrics in her songs. I mean, for example, one of her recent songs made the point that she was so good at sex that you would think that God must be a woman. Here's a little clip of her in a recent music video. Now, I would suggest that she is not a good role model for young people. Here we've got some more wisdom for the children here. Above everything else, genuinely love yourself first. Self-love is powerful and it's the best love that you will ever have. Right, you might agree with that, you might not. Personally, I don't. I think that's pointing people down the road of selfishness. Our challenge in life is to love other people. Loving ourselves tends to come quite naturally, not necessarily liking yourself, but wanting the best for yourself, I think is perfectly natural. But again, what we've got here, presenting the most shallow, popular thought. Education should be about trying to engage with the great thinkers, the great philosophical traditions of the past, so you can inform your own thinking and build on it. But this is just nonsense. Okay, we've got an activity here for the children. I've spoken before about the fact that in Scottish education, from the Scottish Government in general, they're sort of anti-family in the sense that they don't want kids to see family as too important. They want to see family as just part of lots of other people who look after you. The state is really important as well. Don't you forget that, children. So in this activity here, you have to name 5 people who you could talk to about something you're worried about. Okay, but only one of them is allowed to be someone at home. So you can't have mum and dad in your list of people that it's good to talk to if you're worried about something. You have to choose one. Inviting kids to choose, I think, is not right between mum and dad, but anyway, that's what they have to do. Then the others can be teacher, doctor, named person, whoever else, traffic warden, I don't know, whoever. So 4 basically government employees and 1 family member. They're the people you can go to if you've got a worry. And then out of those 5, you have to rate them and discuss their strengths and weaknesses as listeners and who you would go to with different sorts of problem. So it might be that mum is the sort of person to go with some sort of problems. Obviously, named person would be a much better person to go to with other sorts of problems. This whole line of teaching is wrong. It's undermining family and undermining family relationships, and it needs to go. Right, continuing on the line of undermining family relationships. All children have rights. Okay, human rights, religion substitutes of Scottish education. What does a parent or carer need to know about children's human rights and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child? Right, so if the government thinks the parents need to know something about that, it could write to the parents. But instead it's telling the children to think about what they need to tell adults. I wonder which adults they might be, because the staff at the school, they obviously know what they're talking about. It must be those parents. So it's basically saying, go home and tell your parents that they need to know about these rights that you've got. Because if you don't tell them, your parents might be infringing your rights, and that would be really bad. But thankfully, we at the school are here to protect your rights against your parents. So we're here to help. Maybe you think I'm being a bit pessimistic in my interpretation about that. Let's look what else we've got. Here's an activity. Dear adults, so writing a letter to adults. These are things you should remember you need to do for your children. Your children, that sounds like it's talking about parents to me. So the kids are to sit down and write about what parents need to do for children. Okay? Are they going to ask you to deliver these letters? So go home and say, hello, Dad. This is what I need. This is what you better get and do for me, because they've told me at school you need to get on and do it. It's inviting children to critique their parents, and the overall authority that assesses their parents is the teacher, and it's completely wrong. Right, what have we got next? We've got some feminist indoctrination, the gender lessons. You have to take these cards and categorize them as fair or unfair. So school uniform is the same for everybody. Is that fair or unfair? You'd assume the right answer is, oh yes miss, we think that's fair. Oh, well done, you've done very well with this lesson, class. So in other words, having different school uniform for boys and girls, girls can wear a skirt or have to wear a skirt, boys don't, that would obviously be unfair. And so the indoctrination goes on into a sort of extreme feminist gender ideology perspective. In the shop, there's a girls section and a boys section for toys. Obviously, that's supposed to be unfair. In the nursery, all the coat pegs are girls' coat pegs are pink. The boys' coat pegs are blue. Is that fair or unfair? No doubt, the impressionable young people will have it rammed into their head that that is unfair for some reason. The teacher gets everyone to sit boy-girl because she says the boys behave badly when they sit together. Probably true, but that's no doubt that's supposed to be unfair. In the clothes store, there isn't a girls or boys section anymore, just a lot of clothes, and children can pick. You assume the correct answer is that is fair. That's the way it should be. Social engineering at its most cynical and blatant. Number 7. After school, the boys' football team has a coach. The girls' football team doesn't. That must be a grave injustice. That must be unfair. So it's training these kids to be little social justice warriors, feminist activists, finding injustice around every corner. I mean, maybe, the girls' football coach just finished and they haven't found anyone to take their place yet. Or maybe it's just harder to find coaches for girls' football because less females are interested in football. But no, forget all that. It's injustice. It's unfair if the girls' football team doesn't have a coach. Right, so the transgender stuff, as usual. New kid arrived at school. Someone said he's a boy, but the new kid says their name is Ellie. Ellie doesn't answer questions like, are you a boy or a girl? Some boys have started to tease Ellie. Well, that's obviously unfair because some people are teasing him. But on the other hand, Ellie, I think I'd be giving you probably some different advice than your teachers are. When the children were in the class together last year, one of their classmates was Leo. After the summer holidays, Leo came back to the class and is changing the way they look. Now Leo wants to be called Leah. Everyone is happy and Leah is happier now. That's no doubt a thing that's supposed to be fair. I would suggest that Leo's outlook going down that path is not very good at all, but forget all that, that's classed as fair. I mean, how blatant can the indoctrination get? Right, what next? Sexual consent. They're obsessed with sexual consent, and one of the images they use is that sex is like a cup of tea. Well, I think sex isn't like a cup of tea, but anyway, they like to use that illustration. I made a video about this. I'll put a link to it at the end of this one. But what they do in this activity is the kids sit around, half of them sit around in a circle, and the other half go around saying, would you like a cup of tea? And the kid sitting there either says yes or no, and then in the role play, the child who's offering them a cup of tea either pretends to make them one or pretends not to. I mean, that's just thrilling, isn't it? Really engaging, intellectually stimulating education. Anyway, what's next? Right, RSHP, P is for parenthood, so parenthood education. That starts right from the beginning of the educational process. Why primary school kids need to learn about being a parent, I cannot imagine, but that is what they do. So part of it is, me as a parent or carer, how will I make sure my child is healthy? How will I make sure my child is happy? How will I make sure my child is safe? I mean, it's just weird that anyone thinks that primary kids need to be learning parenting skills. Right, last thing. Every PowerPoint presentation in this series so far, it always ends up with the same slide, and it's this one. It says, in this class, we're all individuals, different, unique, and special. Now, that's true. I wouldn't disagree with that. On the other hand, there's a bit of a skew there, because there's another side of the story as well. Because the strength of a society comes from some sort of common identity, common values, sense of community. But there's none of that. It's all about emphasizing the difference, not what we've got in common, what we've got different. If you want a strong society, a cohesive society, there needs to be a degree of common identity and common values. But you miss that out completely in the message that you get here. Okay, those are just a few little snippets from this upper primary school level. So do follow the links to watch the videos about the more substantial aspects about sex and, as usual, the LGBT agenda in primary schools. Thanks for watching.